Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Hope and the Truth. As always, I'm your host, Lance Parvin. With me today, Kelly Beck has invited us into her home. Now, we are on location for many reasons. Beck has a very interesting background. So, Kelly, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
First, tell us a little about yourself.
So I'm a oncology nurse, and I came to Vegas for training in nursing. And as you can hear in the background, I have a couple of little rascally dogs. But the reason that Lance and a bunch of people from the project came to my place today is because I'm also a permaculture designer, which permaculture is a collection of ideas, studies, and research and tools for permanent, sustainable agriculture, where you're actually building the land up instead of depleting it. And this is very important to me because it touches on cancer in a lot of different ways. One is a lot of the chemicals that we're spraying on our food as a nation actually end up making us sick. There has been some evidence to show that it will lead to cancer. And if it doesn't directly lead to cancer, there's problems of malnutrition because the plants are not getting all of the nutrients they need from the soil because of how we're not doing agriculture the way that it should be, and to give the plants the best life and the best nutrition. And so when you have a malnourished person who's not getting the nutrition out of the food that they should, then that causes problems with the immune system, and that can lead to cancer. Cancer needs three things: initiation, where there is some kind of mutation for many different reasons, genetics, some kind of outside source like radiation, a mutagen like some of these chemicals, promotion, where it just is allowed to grow. So if the immune system is very well designed to deal with cancer, but if the immune system is compromised because of malnourishment or different issues, then the cancer is allowed to progress. Initiation, promotion, and progression. So it goes out of control, and you get tumors and so forth. So you need the actual damage to the tissue. You need it to be allowed in some way, so you don't have the natural checks and balances, and then it continues to grow and causes problems. So for me, that's a big reason of why I'm so interested in permaculture, is for people's health. It's not just cancer. You have a lot of other problems: diabetes, heart disease from nutrition problems. I have some health issues of myself, and the food that I'm growing using permaculture, I can tell a lot of benefits for me and a lot of changes.
Now, for some people, they might think this sounds like a new idea. It's not. It's actually how God intended things. And that's one of the things that people are probably noticing about the show. One of our focuses now is to show what brothers and sisters are doing in the community to help those in need. So some people might say, well, I've heard of landscaping, I've heard of farming. How is this different? Because it's not a new concept. Because I like how you're actually taking the instruction that you've received and showing Father's fingerprints and everything. So explain a little more in depth. I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh, no, that's fine. So permaculture is a word that has been placed on a lot of these concepts and ideas, but they've taken it from ancient peoples, from the Bible, it's not, the whole permaculture mindset is not Christian, but there are some in it who are Christian, and the way I see everything when we're learning about permaculture is very biblically based. To me, it's like applied creation science, because what permaculture does is it looks at every single element inside of nature. You say, this is the desert that I'm in. I have 7 inches of rainfall annually here in Vegas, okay? I have a sun that has this track in the sky, okay? And this type of plant, this type of tree do well here, okay? And you take all of this information about a site, and you design an agricultural system around what you have in this area. There's different scales of permanence with it. Like, you cannot change the temperature in Las Vegas unless you move.
True.
But you can change where your fence is. You can change your annual crops. So those are way down on the permanence scale. So every single element from every tree, the bacteria that you're looking at in the soil, the fencing that you have in place, the animals that you use on the landscape, you look at their intrinsic value, their intrinsic design. If this tree has nitrogen fixing capabilities where it associates with bacteria that have high amounts of nitrogen, and you get nitrogen at the bottom of the root tips, and that will fertilize other trees in the area. If this herb is able to mine from 12 feet deep down in the soil a bunch of nutrients, then you can use that one at the base of this nitrogen fixer. And you have a chicken come in, and chickens scratch at the ground, and they help compost, and they help break pest cycles with insects and stuff. So when you've done harvesting, you might be saying, I want this chicken in here. So every single thing, you're looking at what is it designed to do, what are its intrinsic values, what are its outputs, its inputs, and you can get these diverse, healthy, permanent, perennial-based, or at least a perennial backbone, systems of agriculture where you're not depleting the soil, it's actually gaining in value. You're not depleting the topsoil like back, was it like the 30s with the Dust Bowl?
Yeah, Dust Bowl.
The Dust Bowl problem. They lost how many feet of topsoil. Some of the pictures they have people standing in the original site, and 6 feet down is where the new level of the earth is, because they did agriculture that stripped the ground of all of its covering. It allowed for erosion, it allowed for irradiation from the sun to kill all the healthy microbes. You lost all of this fertility, and it was from mismanagement. And we haven't done any better since. We didn't learn anything. And so we also have started using all these pesticides and stuff on fields since 1948, and that has caused so many health issues, which I think is very interesting, because if you follow the history of that, it was actually after World War II. It was the same year that Israel became a nation again. And it was from the manufacturers of artillery, bombs and stuff.
Yes.
So some of the same powerful chemicals that were being used in warfare, they didn't want to lose that industry, so they started making these fertilizers. And then once the fertilizers cause some problems because they're high salt, and that can damage some of the bacteria life in the soil and fungal life in the soil. And then you start having weak plants, and pests would come. And pests aren't as big of a problem when you have healthy, vibrant plants to get all the nutrition they need. They have potent immune systems, which is where you get essential oils. So you think of all the potency in essential oils, that's the plant's immune system. So bugs aren't able to attack the healthy plants. It's only the weak plants. So then when you have all the bugs coming in, and then we spray with insecticides, and that's carried through the food to our consumption. And then it got to the point where that wasn't enough. They started using genetically modified organisms that had retroviruses inside of the plants to fight the bugs. But those retroviruses don't stop at the plant. I remember reading a research article 10 years ago that was talking about the retroviruses in some, I want to say it was peas or beans or something, was actually going into the human hosts and changing humans' DNA to now produce this toxin.
Interesting. It's almost like everything that we're trying to do to try to correct something is creating more of an imbalance.
Yes.
And it's really, we're just looking back to what our Father in Heaven's going to go, what are we supposed to do? Show us how to do stuff right, because every time it's like knocking over dominoes. And it's the more, as technologically advanced as we get, it creates more and more of a dilemma. It's like we're de-evolving as time has gone on, because we're getting smarter. But we seem to just be creating more problems in the environment. I think it's becoming very apparent in people's health, in deforestation, in the climate, and just people's lives. And so little things that I know you've been approached before, people are like, what can I do to get healthy? What are these changes I can make in my life? And it's all connected. It's not one thing, it's all of it. It's a complete change. Being born again is a complete change. So these things are start eating different. Understand why farming is important. Understand that, start to take accountability. These are things that we can learn. I think over time we become so dumbed down and dependent on stuff, we forget that we can actually do stuff. We're God's children. You can understand, wait a minute, I have some skill sets, I need to start applying these to giving back and helping. So I hear you're on some projects. I don't know how in depth you can get. How can some of the permaculture that and obviously you're all students, I know you're still studying, how can it be applied to some of the projects? So I hear you're getting a wider landscape to work in. And seeing her house, it's amazing in the backyard, what you've done, in a small piece of property. How can that be exponentially applied to, let's say, an acre, 2 acres of land?
So some of the, let me backtrack a little bit. So all of that stuff that we did wrong, we were originally made in a garden. We were made for a garden. We were given dominion over that garden. And so when we're looking at, it talks about Adam going out and naming everything, learning about it, and I think that there's so much of the attributes of God that we learn in the garden as well. So we get closer to God in our walk when we're out in nature. And there's so much health and vitality out there. And so part of it is learning about all the attributes of each thing in the design and all the things available to us for design. And so when you're talking about scaling up or down, it's all the same thing pretty much. You're looking at your climate, you're looking at your wind, you're looking at your location, where the sun is, and some of, you can go through all these different things like soil, water. So a big thing with soil is the microbes in it. And so, I have a microscope and I assess my soil and I see what it needs, and I try to apply that with different microbial teas, and because you need fungi and bacteria to really feed the roots of the soil. It's like the cardiovascular system, but under the ground. You have these nutrient flows and the exchange of boron and magnesium and everything that all the microbiology does, but it's in a soluble form that's healthy for the plants. And so what you would do on a large site like that was, where is the biological system of it right now? There's these different levels of succession, early succession to late succession, most where you have no bacteria, no life at all, to some bacteria, bacterial fungi, and different ratios of them. And so you can see where you are in that succession to see where you need to move it for what you want. If you want a prairie there, you want 50-50 bacteria fungi. If you want an old growth pine forest, eventually you're going to push the fungi. If you want brassica vegetables, you can stay at mostly bacteria. So different things like that. Okay. So where's your soil? What do you want your soil to be in that area? You can do earthworks to slow, sink, and store the water. Because water is so important. And so you can do like these swales that are shaped kind of like this if you're looking at a crosscut. So the water coming downhill will actually sit and sink into the ground a little bit. You water storages. You do, like in my little urban setting, I have a lot of pits that are filled with gravel underneath walkways, so that when the rain comes, those fill and slowly permeate out into the soil and the plants around it. So even at this little house or large acre, you can do earthworks to capture the water. Then you want to cover the soil as well. The earth was not meant to have all this clay and gravel and stuff just exposed. The forests drop leaves for a reason. That's not just something random that happens. There's always been like prairies that fall over when they die and grow up again and fall over when they die. And there should be a covering on the soil. So you want to cover the soil and to kind of fast track the healing of any kind of landscape. Out here in the desert, it's very drastic because everything's bare bones, and so covering it, getting a little bit of water retention will make a huge difference. And then you start working on what plants you want. You have different plants that grow fast, they establish quickly, they help stabilize the soil, they help with the water, all these things. And then you can move on to the more delicate plants that produce food and so forth. And an interesting thing about trees too is there's a bacteria on the outside of, to my knowledge, pretty much all trees, called Pseudomonas syringae. Okay. It looks like a little, ball with syringes coming off of it. And this is in all forests all across the world. When the wind comes, rips up that Pseudomonas syringae into the atmosphere, it acts as condensation nuclei. and water will be attracted to the syringes
Really?
on this, and it causes rain. So some of the indigenous peoples used to say that forests called the rain down, and of course the white people were like, "You idiots," you know. And actually, it turns out the forests call the rain down, and there's also evaporation. Anyway, I'm getting that word a little wrong, but the leaves of the trees will actually evaporate some moisture and cause just a little bit of moisture and cause, once that's a large enough system, rain without the ocean. So
Wow.
you can get rain and humidity and stuff just from large forests that isn't attached to the ocean at all. So trees are very important to not only the local like soil and shade and production, feeding the microbes in the soil even when the annual crops aren't there, things like that, but on a wide scale it can change landscapes in the whole general
So
area.
I'm just excited because it really is customizable based on the area that you're in. And if you wanted to if people wanted to get a hold of you to consult on a project, what would be the best way to reach you?
Oh.
Email? I mean, that's fine. What would be the best way? Because people are interested in these topics. And again, depending on the project the person has, that would be a one-on-one because it's not, a desert setting is going to be different than a temperate forest and different than what you have access to as well.
Mm-hmm. My email is Kelly, Kelly _ words, WORDS, @yahoo.com.
Thank you so much for coming by. We came by her place, but it's amazing what is possible. And I think the more that you're sharing with others and they actually see, because we talked about the Jordan Valley, that gets 3 inches of rain. We get double that.
Yeah.
And again, we'll have to put that on the clip of what took place over the course of 3 years. Was it 3 years or 5 years?
It's at year 10 now.
Okay.
But
Yeah, just desert, barren desert. Now it's flourishing. So again, all things are possible with God. Thank you so much for stopping by today, Kelly.
Yeah.
And as always, we'll see you guys next time on Hope and the Truth. God bless. Stay close to the Lord. We'll see you next time.